Welcome everyone to another exciting episode of Our Daily Magic. My name is Dell and my beautiful wife Kai, of course. And what Our Daily Magic is a space in which we allow the potentialities of each and every one of us to unleash our magic. We are all magical beings and we all just need to find different ways to cultivate that magic. So our unique intention is to have magical beings who share their magic and their expertise and how they discover their magic. So that way, for those of us on a journey, we can get some tools to help cultivate our magic and grow that even more. Because, especially in times like we're in right now, I feel that a whole lot of more magic is needed for us to have a magical world. So, the guest that we have today is Victoria Shaw. And just give a quick introduction. Victoria Shaw is a licensed professional counselor and spiritual coach who combines her background and training in psychology and counseling with her intuitive gifts to help clients heal, grow, and realize their spiritual and full personal potential. She takes a holistic approach to counseling, addressing clients' concerns on the mind, body, and spiritual levels. She especially loves working with people who are committed to using their struggles and life experience to fuel their own spiritual awakening. Victoria is the author of four self help books for parents, children, and teens, and she's the host of Intuitive Connection podcast and the mother of two spirited, now adult children. Ladies and gentlemen, Victoria.
Hi.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
yeah, likewise. And to bring people up to speed for what we're going to have for this attention today is what's currently happening right now is my amazing wife is currently working through some emotions right now. And I want to set this space, and she agrees for it as well, and Victoria agreed to it too, is having a healing conversation to see where this goes, because not only will this potentially help Kai, but it's going to help for anybody else who may be going through similar stuff. And of course, this is going to allow Victoria to showcase her magic. So the floor is yours, Victoria.
All right. So cool. Let me, before we wrap into it, Kai, let me share with your listeners a little bit about myself, what I do, how I work, and then we'll get into you, because I think it's important to kind of preface that. So I have a lot of letters after my name, as you can all see, and love those letters, worked hard to get them. But the crux of the work that I do now, more than anything else, is to follow and use my intuition. And intuition is a gift that we all have. It's my understanding that we're all spiritual beings having a human experience. Your intuition is that little bit of knowing that you don't forget when you come into human form. And so it's like that direct line to your soul. We all have it. For me, since I was a child, I was able to get information for people, and I was able to receive guidance for people. And I was also able to read people. So get information about what they were thinking, feeling, what their motivation was, and sometimes also pick up things that were just below the level of consciousness. But when you hear them, you're like, oh yeah. And sometimes when you hear them, you're like, oh no, but usually not. And so you can imagine as a child, that was all a little bit confusing. But the good news is, as an adult, I have done the work, I've straightened it all out. And I've really learned to leverage the power of these gifts to support others, and also to help others connect with their own magic. Because when you're working with a counselor or an intuitive or a psychic or a guru or a meditation teacher or whatever the heck you feel, or a coach or whatever the heck you feel called to do, and I really want to remind everybody listening that the goal of any real helper, healer, teacher, guru, whatever words you want to throw out there, is to help you awaken the magic in you. because we all got it. And, it's not about giving your power away to anybody else. So Kai, when we talk today, what I will tell you is what I tell all of my clients before a session. And we're going to do an intuitive session today, nothing counseling, nothing on my license, just to get that off the table. I can't be doing that without the proper setting. But when I do a reading for someone, what I always tell them is what I'm doing really is reflecting your own wisdom back to you. And sometimes we need to hear it out of someone else's mouth. And sometimes too, there are things that your soul knows that you haven't quite in your human form grabbed onto yet. But usually when you hear it, you're like, oh yeah. And so look for the, oh yeah, look for the things that resonate, because that is, how your spirit, that's what's awakening in you. Okay. And if something doesn't resonate, don't worry. I'm either not getting it right, or, 6 months from now, you're going to go, oh, that's what she meant. So it's all good. All right. So that's my little preamble. And tell me what you want to work on today. I'm going to take a sip of my tea while you do that.
For sure. First of all, thank you so much for sharing, the origin of who you are and where you've come from and how you've gotten to this place today and what it is that, the magic it is that you are. I appreciate you. I'm also an intuitive.
Yay. And, okay.
The kinds of readings that I typically give is that we find where wires are crossed, where there are two beliefs that are contradicting each other. And that's how it is that I'm experiencing what I'm going through today. I have two beliefs that are contradicting each other.
Okay.
And those two beliefs are that I had found my power in actually giving it away.
Okay.
So I felt that, the more that I gave my power away, the more powerful I felt. And then the contradicting belief is that I feel like my soul just wanting to be expressed, hardcore, but it doesn't align with that previous belief.
All right, cool. Can you give me some either context or concrete? Because that first belief, I'm having trouble leaning into that and seeing what that means for you, how you are powerful by giving your power away. Because I don't really know how that would work. Normally when we tap into our own power and our own truth, it's for us. And then, it's almost like if you imagine that you're a firefly, right? And you're really pouring your own magic into your body and activating that. And then you shine out for others to see and go, ooh, firefly. And so a firefly doesn't give her power away. A firefly just does her thing. And then we're all in awe of her magic. And so I'm wondering if there's a confusion in there somewhere, but I think I might need a little more context to know if I'm right.
Sure. I pride myself in knowing that all of the people that I interact with, the people that are close with me, I make sure 100% that they feel seen and heard.
Got it.
And I do that to my own detriment, where I end up not being self-expressed.
Oh, that's a beautiful question. Okay, I love that. So if I can reframe it, you tell me if I hit it. It's about how can I let other people feel seen and heard, but also see and hear and honor myself and my own truth. Yes. Oh my God. That is something that a lot of folks are managing right now. And it's so huge and it's so important. And, the thing is, people sometimes get confused, Kai, is that they think that, and I said your name right, correct? I got a little dyslexia, so I always double check when I hear names. This idea, right? First of all, you can respect someone else's truth. You can hear their truth without agreeing with them at all. And everyone's going to have their own perspective, and everyone's perspective is built based on what they've learned, what they've been taught, what they've experienced in their own life, and maybe even other lives if you believe in that kind of thing. And it's going to be different for everybody because we're all unique. We all have unique set of eyeballs. And is there one overarching universal truth? Probably, but you're not going to probably, you only get glimmers of that in your human form. And even that, how you express it and experience it while in human form is going to be unique because you're unique. You with me so far?
Yes.
And so sometimes when I love that you asked this question because it's hitting home. When we want someone else to be felt and heard, sometimes what we think we have to do is jump into their skin and feel it with them and hold them through it. And then we lose ourselves. And so you know this, but I'm going to tell you again, you came here to express your own unique voice and your own unique perspective. And you can't do that if you're always jumping into everybody else's skin. Are you with me?
Yeah.
And again, here's the even trickier part. Some people only think, can you hear that in the background? My apologies. That's not supposed to be happening. Some people think that, mistakenly think, right, that, let me rephrase. Sorry, I lost the train. So sorry. I'm just annoyed that there are people in the background talking because they should know better. And it just totally threw me off into my angry space, but I will not scream at people while I'm on your show. Anyway, but it's a good case in point. So some people believe, right, like what I'm saying is some of the people in your world don't want to be seen or heard. What they really want to do is they want to keep you hooked. Okay. I don't know if you know who those people are. And so it's this thing that you do out of the kindness of your heart where you kind of match their energy and you match their perspective at the detriment of your own. But what they really want you to do is be 100% on their side. It's not, they'll never really feel heard by you. That's not their agenda. Does that make sense? And so when we honor someone else's perspective, we have to agree to let go of what they think, what they believe, and if they feel heard. Because if you feel heard or not is actually on you. Right? Someone can be the best listener in the world. I like to think I try really hard to be that when I'm doing counseling. Some people still walk out of a session and they're like, oh my God, she didn't hear me at all. It's life. And so you have to let other people, their happiness, their perspective, whether they feel heard has never been on you in the first place. And you can certainly, maximize things so that you're not a butthole, which I really don't think that you ever are. But, their perspective will be their perspective. And sometimes, we mistake wanting to be heard, wanting someone to feel safe, wanting them to feel heard by wanting to change their perspective. Right. And that's when we get a little bit confused and messed up. Does that make sense what I said?
Absolutely. It's funny because I just said the other day about letting go of things that are not my job.
Yeah. And a lot of there's specific people in your world that, again, this pattern has worked for them. You thought it was working for you, but now your sort of inner warrior is kind of starting to wake up and go, it's not working for me. And I'm angry. And what do I do with all my feelings, my frustrations, my whatever? And they feel like these two things are at odds, my friend, but really it's just your inner self wanting to be heard. And it's your inner self waking up and saying, wait, maybe I'm getting a little steamrolled here. And I want to get myself up and pop back into 3D rather than pancake. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. Apparently that one resonated with both of you. And look, again, these particular people for you, they don't necessarily want to be heard or want to be happy. They want to keep you hooked on pleasing them. Okay. And so it's a tricky one to extricate from, because that's the dynamic that you've set up. And I think it goes way back. I'm not going to name names because you might not want to name names, but it looks like a lot of these are pretty old relationships. And the pattern for sure is one that got set up a long, long time ago. And you were probably the pleaser and you were probably the conflict resolution person in your family, in your life, the one that, could just make everybody stop fighting and come together, but it's killing you. It's killing you. You got to step out of it. It's like if you're on a battlefield, right? And everyone's shooting at each other at a certain point, you're the only one waving the red flag and you're getting all these bullets in you. And they don't want to stop fighting. It serves them, but it no longer serves you. Does that make sense? Yeah. The other thing that comes through, and I think this is as much for the audience as it is for you, sometimes we think about when we start to tune into our own longings and our own feelings and our own perspective, and sometimes those are messy, sometimes those are feelings and anger, and all of those things are your GPS system. So listen to them because they're always a sign, but you don't have to double down on them, right? You don't have to then make my perspective, these people are screwing me over and they're so terrible. And you're not gonna, but you're afraid that you will. It's just about hearing yourself, hearing the feelings. Anger is usually where a boundary wants to happen and it's not happening. And it builds up until we finally say no. And saying no can be an internal thing, right? You can change your behavior without ever, sometimes we think speaking our truth, and I did a whole podcast episode on this. Sometimes we think speaking our truth means other people have to hear it. And oftentimes the people that we would love to hear it aren't going to hear it. It's not in their agenda. It serves them no purpose at all to hear your perspective. They're not interested and they're not ready. And so really speaking your truth is for you and the trusted people around you, like I'm sure your lovely spouse here who can hear you and honor you and support you. So speak your truth to the ones who will listen, but mostly it's for you. And once we voice our truth to ourselves and then start acting accordingly, it doesn't really matter what the other guy thinks. Sometimes they're not happy if we change our behaviors in a way that they think doesn't serve them. But I'm going to give you another whammy, Kai. When you are acting in service of your true self, you're serving everyone, even if other people's egos are not on board yet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that one landed as well.
Yeah, that's a collective thing resonating. And I know this is a session for Kai. I wanted to just put a little seasoning on that because of the fact of, especially, this happened for myself, having this spiritual awakening and start to see the things I had done before. So I felt this need because I got deeper into my heart. Oh, let me try to make things right. Let me try to make amends. And what you say is perfect because a lot of people are not ready to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
yeah. And when you think about it, so we look back on our own lives when we cross over, we know because we're spirits in human form. And so we continue even after this personality that you think you are right now, ceases to exist. When we look back at our lives, we look back at everything with perfect equanimity. We don't judge ourselves. We simply look at action consequence based on the perspective that we are holding at the time. And we all have varying degrees of confusion and illusion in our perspectives, right? And when we can do that in our body, right? And we can look back because we've made a big growth in the way that we understand ourselves in the world. And we can do that in our body. And we can look at a mistake or something from that broader perspective and take responsibility for it. We have done our work. We have done our work. And then sometimes other human beings are not as quickly to catch up with that. They may not see it the way you see it. They may not be so ready to forgive. They may not, right? They may not catch up with you. It's okay. As long as you, see your own truth, acknowledge it, acknowledge the responsibility, without judging yourself, and then move forward from that higher level of awareness. You have done your work. And that's a magical thing when you can do your work while you're in a body and you don't have to wait till you're dead to go back and go, oh, wait, what? Right? So you guys are ahead of the curve, if that makes sense. But humans tend to either beat themselves up right when they see this, and then you just stay at that level, or they just try to get everyone else on board because we always feel like the other guy's got to know it too. And, we're all free agents in this place called Earth, and we're all developing at our own rate of growth and development. We all have our own perspective. So sometimes the people around you will not, mirror back your own magnificence right away. But the more that you lean into the fact that it's there, and you guys have a podcast called Our Daily Magic, so it's a thing, the more you vibe with your own magic, the more you'll attract people into your life more and more that are like, oh, wow, you're magical. Like, let's share our magic. But, that probably won't be everyone because of, the state of the earth right now and stuff.
Got that.
Anything else, my friend?
I just want to say that the word that you use that really resonated with me is responsibility, and that's that is the approach that's totally where I'm coming from. I just want to be responsible for my soul, and my soul is trying to tell me something right now, and I just want to make sure that I'm listening.
And people pleasers and conflict resolutioners, if that's a word, well, it is now, and people maybe that have grown up in conflictual, high conflict, there's a good word, environments, and had a little more awareness than everybody else, so could see how everyone could get along even if no one wanted to. If that resonates. Sorry, I lost the train of thought, but it will come back. When you're in that kind of state, right, sometimes you confuse what you're responsible for and what you're not. And little kids naturally think they're responsible for everything. So a lot of these patterns get set up when we're a child, where if someone else is hurting, if someone else is fighting, like little kids think it's all on them, right?
Right.
And so, you're just naturally going to be responsible for everything else. But I think one of the things you're learning right now, Kai, is where your responsibility truly lies and how to take care of you. And I think a lot of things that you thought you were responsible for, you're learning, oh, wait, no, that's actually on somebody else. And letting go is scary, because when you let go of responsibility for some of these people, they may not like it, and they may lose interest in you in a way that I think is going to be really scary. And that's what you're really afraid of. So I would lean into the people that support you, the people that love you. I would love to tell you that there's going to be a sunny outcome, but I don't know. I think it's going to be a transition. I do want to tell you, I am not a card reader at all. Don't do cards. Don't do anything. But sometimes cards do find me. And I have a friend that her business cards are tarot cards, and found this when I was cleaning out a bag, and it's sitting on my desk. And as soon as we went on, before you told me anything, this card popped up. It's the 10 of Cups. Is that a 10? That's a 10, right? I hope so. It is now. And that card is all about family harmony. Okay. And the happy ending and the rainbows and the Google it, because I'm not a tarot reader, and so look afterwards. And those of you who know tarot cards, like go check it out. But I really felt like that card was sitting on my desk, and I was like, she's going to need that. So again, I do think that you are moving towards a new level of harmony, but you might have to let go of the old way where you thought you were making harmony, but it was actually you were marinating in disharmony, so that you can move forward onto the level where you're going to feel okay. And I do think some people will be on board in the end, but at the end of the day, you can't wait for them, my friend. You can't wait for them to catch up, because that's where you're getting stuck. And the guides also, if it's okay, really want to talk about your work a little bit. Is that all right?
Yes, please.
So in your work, and I know this because this was part of my journey as well, these boundaries are so important. And when we work with other people, knowing where our responsibility ends and begins is paramount. And though I think you have a pretty good idea up here about where your responsibility to a client, or whatever you call the people you work with, begins and ends, I think emotionally in your gut, especially, and a little bit in your heart, sometimes you kind of get your energy drained. Does that resonate?
Yeah.
Right? Because you're overgiving in those relationships too. So as you work on this and you recognize, I give people this, but it's not my job to make them happy. It's not my job to fix them or solve them. Or it's just, the way I look at it is each session I tune in, I get the information that I need to get, I awaken something within my client, and then I let them go. And I trust that, it's not my job to do anything. It's not my job to carry you or fix you or heal you, or even support you beyond, our 45 minutes. It's simply, I awaken something in you, and then I trust that, you get to go to town with that information and decide what to do with it. And so I would really think about that in your work and those parallels. And, I know for me, the places I get stuck with clients where I tend to go into that overgiving mode is it's not so much anymore, but it used to be when someone's really for me, the belief is oh, I'm not enough. So whenever I feel like it's not enough, and I've worked on layers and layers of that, things I used to do readings where I would write, and, I would feel like I needed to use the whole time, and it was never enough. And then I would go back and read these things because they were written, and be like, oh my God, you just gave someone all of that, 7 pages of information. You think that wasn't enough? What the heck? So, it's about trusting into that and working into that. And for you, I think it's also about letting people not always be happy with you. Okay. Mm-hmm. There's people in your life, especially early relationships, that it didn't really serve them to be happy with you, or they were happy with you when you were doing what they wanted you to do. And if you strayed a little bit, there was hell to pay. Okay. And you don't really want those clients. Right. And so the best thing to do is, if you got those clients, set the boundary, let them go. Right. And then you'll start to attract the ones that are going to vibe with your magic and reflect back to you how magical you are, which is what every soul wants. And very most importantly, Kai, it's what I see you all want to do with every soul that you connect with. So it's a win-win.
Absolutely.
All right, that's all I'm getting. But anything else?
Sure. I'd just love to give some feedback. And that is that, like for the past week, I had also been on, a journey of taking care of my body.
Okay.
And what I realize is that, my guilt is what has really manifested as additional weight. And, it's the guilt of not having other people feel fulfilled, that I interact with. And it's like,
Yeah.
man, I couldn't get them, to this
Yes.
place that I made up, and put this
Yeah.
expectation on myself that doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, I take that with me throughout my day and in my life. And
Yeah.
now I'm in a place where I get to release that.
Yeah.
And all of the things are coming up today. Once I made that declaration that I'm going to let go of control, that I'm going to let go of, like you were saying, conflict resolution is
Yeah.
where it just like totally like comes in my face. And I'm
Yeah.
thankful for it, to be able to see it.
I'd love you to write down in an index card a couple of things, reminders. One index card is some people don't want to be happy. That's a really hard one because we all think we want to be happy, right? But some of us are just so used to vibing in certain patterns of unhappiness that we would rather just keep playing that game than really solve the problem. Okay? And that's okay if you attract those people into your life. If they're friends, you can just recognize, not my job to make anybody else happy. By the way, you can't do that. Happiness is only something we can find within ourselves. We can, again, be a firefly. We can shine the light. We can lead by example, but you can't do the work for anyone else. And no one really, truly wants you to. And if they think they want you to, they basically just want to play dead while you carry them around. And that's a lot of weight. Right. And it doesn't serve them because they're going to have to get back in their boots at some point and like learn to walk. That's what we're here to do. So the first one is some people just don't want to be happy. The second one that comes through is, you can't make everybody happy all the time. Right. And it's not my job. Right. The only job I have really ultimately is to me, and everything else flows through by example. And the third declaration that's coming through for you, you can write this down or not, is, and this is for both of you, my friends, you guys are really moving into this energy where you want to have more fun in your life. You want to have more joy. You want to not worry about everybody else's BS. And you want to just really flow and have fun. And so for you, it's going to work on the guilt around finally stepping into taking care of you. Okay. And again, it's not a story like I'm finally taking care of me, and that's why it's okay for me to take care of me. No, it's always been okay for you to take care of you. It's just you haven't lived in a world that's told you that, right? We have much more information that tells us that we should take care of everyone else than we do, especially in women bodies, but even in male bodies sometimes, right? It's all about everybody else, but really it's the other way around. It's all about you in the highest sense. And then your caring for others flows from that. Right. And that's what real love looks like. That's what real service looks like. Everything looks like that when you are in service to yourself first in the highest sense. Not like I'm not telling you to go out and rob people at gunpoint or cheat people or, buy all the toilet paper for yourself. Although, whatever. I have a lot of toilet paper in my basement. I just got to say. But it's not a fear-based thing. It's a love and honor-based thing. When you love and honor yourself and you start from there, everything else will start to make sense and magically flow. Okay.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're very welcome. One more little teeny tiny thing, and then I'll stop talking, is, when you work with other people, you have a real high bar. And again, both in your personal relationships, but I see it professional too. And you're recognizing now, I can't do it for them. I can't fix them. I can't, sometimes you want your truth to be seen in that other person because you want the validation that your magic is there. Okay. Number one, you got to give that to yourself. Number two, you're not always going to see the effects of your magic immediately on the people around you. You shine your light. You've been shining your light for years with people that have really, 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 really dark sunglasses on, if not complete and total blinders. So, they're not going to see it, but it's getting in like around the cracks or whatever. They may not acknowledge it. It might be 10 lifetimes from now. They look back and go, oh, wow, that Kai relationship was so magical. But, we don't know the seeds we're planting, just by being ourselves. And I would want you to focus on that. I want you to focus on what brings me joy, what feels right to me, what do I feel called to share with others today? And don't worry as much about how it lands. And then you're going to start attracting the people that you can really vibe with and who can really appreciate your magic. And, the other ones will probably fall away. But in the meantime, you don't know what's getting through to them. We often don't know. I'll have a session with someone and I'll think like, oh my God, that was a nightmare. And, 6 months later, I'll get an email, you changed my life. We don't know. Right? So I hope that helps.
Yeah. Yes, a lot. Thank you, Victoria.
You're very welcome. Thank you. This was fun.
I hope whoever is listening got that helpful information. I see there's a couple people on there. So if there is something you got out of this conversation out in this live intuitive session that just happened, feel free to share your comments, or even if you have any questions in your own life as well, share.
Happy to answer them. Love doing that. Always really fun.
Yeah.
Do I get to see the comments too here in StreamYard?
Oh yeah, when it pops up.
Oh, that's nice.
We'll put it on a big screen and you get to see it. So in the meantime, my question for you is, how did you discover this magic? Yeah. What's your journey?
So the journey started, like I said, I know now I was a highly intuitive child, and I know I had these gifts all along. And I remember people throughout my life saying things like, wow, that's so insightful for a 10-year-old. So I know it was always there. But I was someone who was in kind of a dysfunctional, heavy energy family, definitely an overgiver, trying to like fix everybody around me so I could have some harmony. I was an empath. So empaths are people that feel what other people are feeling like it's happening to them. And if you don't know you're an empath, you can, be picking up lots of stuff that isn't yours and thinking it's yours and being overwhelmed. And that was my story as well. And Kai, I know that resonates with you. And, I also didn't have a frame of reference for understanding stuff like spirit or intuition. My family were like agnostic at best. And I would say, probably more, my dad skewed more towards atheist. So there wasn't any kind of spiritual religion, but also any kind of spiritual belief system. So that part was completely missing. So I didn't really have all the pieces to understand what was going on. And I was pretty overwhelmed. So at times I was sort of like, if you were watching old school TVs or radio, let's use radio with all the channels on at once, you're not going to hear very much. Like occasionally, maybe you're going to get a word or two through, but it was just TMI all the time. So a big part of my journey was, learning to tune down and tune into the right channels. And I was really fortunate because, I got all this academic training, got to the edge of that journey. I have an Ivy League PhD, but wrote books, did all this stuff, but came to the end of that journey feeling like I lost my soul in there somewhere. Like all the passions that brought me to pursue psychology, which are still mine today. When I got to the end of the, scientific psychology, it was gone. And so I took time off to raise my family and have some kids and do that kind of thing. And it was through that journey that I really awakened, because I realized that, my struggles and all my unresolved stuff from my childhood was hurting the way that I was parenting. And I wanted, just to do my very best that I could for my kids. And my kids also had some other kinds of, my son had learning issues. My daughter had different issues. And so that was cool too, because I had this really out of the box pediatrician that I somehow found that kept sending me to, energy healers and intuitives and, stuff I'd never heard of before, but I quickly caught on because it was working. And they all said to me, Victoria, you're super intuitive. What are you going to do with this? And after a few years, I was like, all right, I'm looking for something to do. And so I started to really follow that journey of listening and tuning into my intuition. And then once as you probably know, intuition is the gift that keeps on giving. And the more that you listen, the more you align with your soul, and it will guide you more and more. And so every step that I've taken, on my professional journey for sure has been about increasingly listening to the voice of my inner wisdom and following that. And I continue to do that. And so that's how I got to doing what I do today. And, I do it in my own life, but I also love to help other people, leverage the power of their inner wisdom and align with their souls, because it's a really great way to live.
Wow. If that isn't magic, I don't know what is.
Aw. And I love your show because I love the idea of helping people tune into their magic, because isn't that what life is about? So
Yeah,
I think it's a beautiful message and a beautiful mission.
yeah. And that soul, like you said, tune into the soul. So connecting to yourself. That's what the
Right.
magic is. It's like it's your soul. Like
Yes. Yeah.
connecting to that. It's funny you mentioned how your children help to lead you to awakening. I just read somewhere yesterday they were talking about just moments in life that lead to people having that epiphany moment, and they were talking about when a woman gives birth. It's like it could be equivalent to having a near-death experience because it's like a process that goes
Yeah.
on.
It's so powerful. I remember when my daughter was born and it was a crazy birth. Like a lot of things went quote unquote wrong, not the way we wanted. She was fine, but it was very stressful. But I remember the moment that she popped out and feeling this wave of love like nothing I've ever known. Like so overwhelming, and just being like, wow, did my parents feel that way about me? Like, it changed everything just to realize it wasn't until that moment I knew the depth of love that I could feel for another human being. It was like magical. And not everyone, for people listening, not everyone has that experience. It's different for everyone. And I've worked with many people too that the love affair with a child is it develops gradually in the bonding, but yeah, it is a profound experience. It definitely was for me. And it's different for all of us. And again, as spirits in human form, we tailor make our journey for what's going to best serve whatever we're here to do. And I believe we all have a little lesson plan when we come to Earth in each of our bodies, and I believe we get multiple tries. And so your lesson plan will be tailor made for you. Right. So for some of us, that's I'm going to learn by being a parent. For others, it's I'm going to just be a career person. Sometimes, you're going to have an amazing relationship with your parents because that's going to be the foundation that, you build everything on. Other times you're going to have a terrible relationship with your parents because that's going to be, the mess that you clean up in your adulthood and learn from that. So, oftentimes humans want to look over their shoulders and compare themselves to everybody else and be like, why do they have this and I don't have this? Or, well, I have so much and they have so little, but comparisons are completely irrelevant because your soul has tailor-made your life for you. And it's going to be different for everyone, and it's supposed to be. So it's good to just stay on your own path. And I love people that are open in my practice, that are open to looking at whatever they're struggling with, whatever's going on, as that catalyst for learning and growth and bringing in that soul's perspective. And, we don't stop being human when we awaken or move towards awakening. You get to be human all the way through the journey. And so please honor your feels and your humanness, but we do start to have that more of that bird's eye view of our life so that we see and understand our humanness in a broader perspective. And that's when I think life starts to get a lot more chill.
Yeah, that different perspective of looking at your life compared to the woe is me.
Yeah.
And look into that, what is this teaching me? Like having that type of curiosity about your life, which is accessible to all of us. And we have the choice of whether or not we want to be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's important too to honor the feels because your human self will sometimes not like what's going on. And, like sometimes spiritual folks are like, it's happening for you, not to you. Like, just be happy. Like that doesn't work that way. So it's about holding that broader perspective, vibing with it when you can. But when you feel overwhelmed by life, be kind to yourself. And that's where faith comes in, where you're like, okay, somebody on this podcast, Our Daily Magic, said it's happening for me, and that, there's a broader perspective. I can't see it right now. I'm hurting like heck right now. But I'm just going to fold that page over in my mind that maybe there's more. And in the meantime, I'm just going to be really, really, really kind to myself because that's the bestest way to get through whatever's going on right now.
Yes. I had a question.
Yeah.
Another question, because I'm very intrigued because you did your studies for psychology and then you had the awakening and started shifting to spirituality. So how are you able to integrate both?
I love that question. For me, all of the training hasn't gone away, and I use it all. And I have 2 advanced degrees, or 3 really, but one doesn't totally count because it's part of you don't get a master's and a PhD program. They give it to you, but it's like if you leave with the master's, it means you flunked out. So anyway, it's tricky. But I mean, I have 2. I got the PhD in psychology, so I was a research psychologist, and I was really actually motivated by those big questions, like what's the mind-body connection, and what is consciousness, and how do we remember things? And it's just as I got further along on that journey, not knowing that there was a spirit thing and getting lost in the material thing, which is sort of the way science is working right now. The passion got lost, and I didn't know what was missing then. I do know now. And so, I always reinterpret all of those things that I learned as a psychologist, infusing spirit back into them. And then they all make a lot more sense. Right now, my brain can do that. Not every brain can do that, but it totally works for me. And then the second degree I got was a master's in counseling, because when my intuition first started awakening, a lot of the information I would get would be of a counseling nature. And I thought, wow, I would love this tool, this skill set. I'd love to learn how to listen to people. I'd love, and the license definitely helped me a lot. I'm not using it as much right now as I used to, but I'm glad I did that. So I have that skill set as well. But really, especially in that second master's, I'm still very much intuitively driven. And I listen to my intuition first. And what I do is I allow my knowledge, my left brain knowledge, to be almost like a file cabinet for my intuition. And if I need to open a particular file, my guidance will take me there, and I'll pull open the file and I'll say, hey, I know this thing, and I want to share this thing with you because I think it's relevant to you now and what you're going through. But what a lot of people are trained to do is just, keep digging in the file cabinet until you find something that works. And a lot of times you just pull out stuff randomly because you think it's a good idea. And, you might get there, you might not. It takes a lot more time than just following your intuition, which always knows and always takes you to the right place first. And so that's how I like to work. Personally, I don't see a big conflict between science and spirituality. I just think that, the rest of the world is just a little slow in catching up. But I can go back between those 2 worlds seamlessly. And again, it's because I'm following the flow of my spirit and my intuition first. And when you follow that, then you just don't get hung up on all the little details of who's right, who's wrong, what's true, what's not true. You just deliver the goods and walk away.
Wow. Amazing.
Oh.
And yeah, and that's exactly how I've been feeling too. What about yourself? How do you feel?
There was a phrase that I heard that I do resonate with, and that was, it was about science, saying that science does not make sense without accounting for consciousness.
Yeah. Absolutely. One of my favorite books that I've read in the past year, and I'm actually going to have him on my show. So I'm so excited because I told him I've dropped the name of your book on so many podcasts because this is a guy that he was an undergrad at Princeton and we didn't overlap, but we have that he was a psych major. So I'm like, we have that common background, which is so cool. But he was like a high achiever, top of his field, award winner, captain of the tennis team, high achieving dude that one day started listening to podcasts about intuition and blew his mind. And his first book, which I loved, was he researched all of it's called The End of Upside Down Thinking, or End of Upside Down Thinking, talking about how materialism, and that's what science, the paradigm or the way of viewing the world that science is based, thinks everything comes from the material. But it's the other way around. Everything comes from the spirit. Everything comes from consciousness, right? Material is created, and quantum physics apparently tells us that, and he explains it very well. My left brain does not work that well, and I have no desire to go there, but when he says it, it's really smart, and I believe him. But we haven't caught up with that yet. And so if you just flip that pyramid upside down, it all makes sense. And that's just how I like to live my life. And, talking about science too, one of my favorite things to do before I got my PhD, I was a double major in psychology and philosophy. So I did a lot of philosophy of science. And philosophy of science also tells us how science is a socially constructed thing. It has a lot to do with consensus and what people choose to believe. It's not like, the objective truth. And I've seen that in my own work, right? Certain things, everyone's like, oh, that makes sense. Like, let's publish that. Other things, people are like, well, that really stretches my mind. That can't be true. And there's tons of amazing research on psychic phenomena. And the research is, you guys obviously know this, I don't know if your listeners do, and the research is like so much stronger statistically than most of the stuff that I got published when I was at Princeton. Not that, my work was a slouch, it wasn't, but I'm just saying, like, this stuff is like amazing. And yet a lot of people just don't want to see it. It's science, it's replicatable, it's good. It's good stuff. But again, if your mind does not want to go there, you will not take it in. And I think that that's, not really a problem with science, but a problem with the human mind. And, just a lot of us are just wedded to our belief and our worldview, and we don't have the flexibility yet to shake things up. But eventually minds are slow. It takes them more time than it does for our spirits, but they will get there. After a few revolutions, your brain shuts down and you're like, okay, I'm ready to just look at things a new way. And that's how awakening happens, and our society is getting there as well. So I don't know if I went off on a tangent there, but
Tangents are always welcome, because
yeah,
the infinite truth being expressed through you and
yeah,
flow. And
Can I comment on that?
yeah, go ahead.
Is that what you were saying about looking at things through a different way? I also heard another phrase that says that delusion is a gift of human evolution.
absolutely.
So we are so evolved that we're able to, to experience a delusion. We're actually able to, put ourselves into our own illusions, which is pretty cool if you think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, animals don't have that at all. They're just here having fun.
Yeah.
So we have the space where we get to reconcile with what is.
Mm.
And being that energy cannot be created or destroyed, all there is what is.
Yeah.
So how we're relating to it becomes our reality, and that's so strong.
Yeah, I love that.
I was just about to say how it was interesting when she mentioned one person said, wait, this is expanding my mind, so this is not right. Like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. And in his book, the author's Mark Gober, like, I love it because he talks about skeptics, right, that will say things like, I don't care how good the research is, I'll never believe that. Right? That's not science. We think that's science, but the scientific method, when you go all the way down all the way down to the philosophy of it, that's not it. But science, like everything else, is socially constructed, and it's based on our ego and our human illusions and delusions, and it ain't perfect, but the basic idea, right? And so if someone doesn't want to believe something, they're not going to believe it, even if all the research is like, staring them in the face.
Yeah. And that egoic mind can limit us so much for the reality and experience that we have, because on the egoic side, we are looking for results, tangible results. Okay, show me this, show me this.
Yeah.
And in that spiritual aspect, there is so much things going on that we can't even see with our human eyes, of this vast spiritual space. But then that's where like everything comes from into this form. Yeah. So like having that question, like, where do I come from? Or where do these things come from before it even got manifested into the form?
The hard thing is that your mind wants to answer all the questions and know everything, but your mind can't know.
No.
Your mind can't know. Your spirit already knows, but your mind can't know. And any way that your mind tries to understand will always be limited. But it's also the only translator that we got. So again, we can filter things through and get an approximation. And the more present you are, and the more you learn to use your mind as a tool rather than letting, it take over and run the show, the more you can start to approximate those greater truths. But there's always going to be a space between what you can conceptually understand and what is, just because concepts, they're limited. That's the whole thing about being in a body, and it's okay. But oftentimes we try to solve the problem, with the thing that created it. And that's where humans get stuck. And, but it's a thing, and we've been doing it for, lots of iterations now, but we'll get there.
Yeah. It reminds me, because sometimes trying to find a solution to a problem, and I'm just sitting there, just nonchalantly just being, and then I'll just get this thought of like, hey, Wouldn't it be cool to like do something, whatever it may be? And I'm like, no, nothing will happen for that. So my mind already brings it in like, no, there's no way that this could solve or whatever other stuff. And I don't know the potentialities. What can happen by just doing that intuitive nudge I just have.
Yeah. And it's learning to listen to it. And then, people often ask, well, how do I know to trust? Like, what's a nudge and what's not? It's trial and error. And you start to know what it feels like. And the more you act on it, it gets even stronger. And so, if you have an intuitive nudge tomorrow to, sell everything you own and, move to Alaska and live in a tent, sit with that a little bit. Okay. I mean, maybe someone out there, that's their thing, but if you're not used to listening to your intuition, and I don't necessarily recommend starting there, although sometimes people do. Sometimes the first nudge is like, I got to sell everything and be a nomad for, 3 years. And it's the best decision they ever made. So, but a lot of times, like I tell people, start small, they'll do the little stuff, start to listen so that you can trial and error and see which ones fit and which ones are just your mind. And you learn really, really fast if you open up to it. And, the other thing too is sometimes the ones that we learn the most from are the times that we don't listen. Because the time that you don't listen and then you knew you were right, that intuition was right, it's just the biggest learning moment because it's just such great feedback. And people sometimes want to beat themselves up when that happens, but I'm a really big fan of celebrating because that right there told you your intuition was working, you heard it correctly, and next time you're going to act on it. So I hope that helps.
Absolutely. Would you mind introducing us to either one or some of your books and also where we can find you?
Absolutely. So my books were written back in the old days, so they're not relevant to what I do now, but more will be coming soon. They're books for teens and tweens on puberty and friendship. So like my old jam, and they're cool books, and an exercise book for new moms. So, but new writing will be coming soon. And then my podcast is Intuitive Connection, and that's on all the major platforms. And, I talk about a third of my episodes are solo casts where I just, feel the call to share something, and I share wisdom and guidance that comes through my vocal cords from, the higher guidance. I do interviews as well with amazing folks that are, doing the same kind of stuff that you all are doing and using their intuition in different ways in their lives and work. And then I also do readings on the show. So you get that flavor of that. And, we learn so well from example and from other people's stories. So, it took me a while to get up the guts to start doing readings on the show, but I feel it's so much fun, and I know it really resonates with people. That is my website, victoriashawintuitive.com. That's where you can find me if you wanted to book an individual one-on-one reading. I do group coaching on different topics. I'm going to start to do a class at the end of next month on empaths. Tools for empaths. So that's coming up. And then I'm also super active on Facebook. And my Facebook group is Intuitive Connection Community. And I do a lot of free teachings and readings. All of the podcast guests come and join us there for Q&As. So that's a really great place to find me too. And on the first week in May, I do not know the dates on that, I will be doing a mini course for empaths. So all the tools that empaths need to survive and thrive. So that's it. That's me.
That's plenty.
Yeah, I'm keeping busy. I'm also in the midst of a cross-country move, so I got a lot on my plate. Yeah.
Where are you now and where are you going?
I'm in Connecticut now, and I'm moving to San Diego.
Whoa.
Yeah. So big life changes for me. So yeah, a lot going on.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. And if you had one last thing to share to someone who was really impacted and was listening today, just that little nugget that they could take with them, what would it be?
My eyeballs are, showing me your tagline. And I just want to say, in alignment with what these guys do, you are magic. You are magic. You might not have realized it yet. You might have not tuned into it yet. You might not have discovered it yet, but please know that that is who and what you are, and that your magic is working for you every day and in every way. And it's just a matter of you opening yourself up to it, seeing it more expressing it more and learning again to, get a better hold on that magic wand. And when you do, you will be unstoppable, and you already are.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. This was so much fun. Unexpected treat.
Yeah. Thank you.
Likewise.
Thank you.
It's an honor to be with you, and thank you so much for your guidance and sharing your wisdom earlier in the
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. This was a blast.
You're most welcome, and thank you everyone for watching. Feel free to tune in with us next week.
Stay magical.